The convenience store clerk looked like someone you'd barely notice, the quiet kind who kept her head down and her shift moving. But when three armed men stormed through the door that night, she didn't scream, she didn't freeze. Instead, she calculated the distances, the threat levels, and every possible exit in just under 2 seconds. By the time one of them pressed the cold barrel of a gun against her temple, they had already sealed their fate. Some people survive by luck. Others survive because training never leaves them. This is the story of Bella Ward, and the night 3 desperate criminals found out that the soft-spoken woman behind the counter had once been one of the Navy's most efficient and feared operators. It was a Tuesday, same as every other for the past 8 months, and she was covering the graveyard shift at Murphy's Corner Market on the outskirts of Riverside, California. The fluorescent lights hummed above her, giving everything that slightly unreal glow that made time stretch and blur. The air smelled of stale coffee, disinfectant, and the faint sweetness of old lottery tickets no one ever won with. Bella moved like someone who conserved motion the way others conserved breath. Efficient, clean, precise. The wall clock read 2:47 a.m. In 13 minutes, the bread truck would arrive. 28 minutes after that, Officer Patterson would stop in for his usual black coffee and a bear claw. 6 hours and 43 minutes later, her shift would end, and she'd walk home to feed Winston, her cat, before trying to sleep without remembering Kandahar. She didn't love the job, but she didn't hate it either. It was quiet, uncomplicated, and mercifully anonymous. Nobody asked about her past, and nobody stared at her like the soldiers once had. Half admiration, half unease. Here she was just Bella, the night clerk who kept the floors clean and the coffee fresh. The bell above the door chimed softly as a familiar customer shuffled in. Marcus Thompson, 67, retired postal worker, insomniac. He bought the same things every night: Marlboro Lights, a lottery ticket, and antacid tablets. "Evening, Marcus," Bella said with that neutral warmth she'd perfected, friendly but not inviting. "Bella," he replied, making his slow way to the shelves. 4 minutes later, she rang up his order, chatted about weather that never really changed, and watched him disappear into the stillness outside. The store fell back into its usual rhythm. The low hum of refrigerators, distant traffic murmuring from the interstate, fluorescent lights buzzing like static. Bella glanced at the security monitors, 6 small screens showing the same peaceful nothingness. Everything normal, everything quiet, everything exactly as it should be. Her hand reached for the cleaning spray, but then something deep inside, the part of her wired by 12 years of service and sharpened by missions where hesitation killed, sounded the silent alarm. Vehicle approaching. Headlights off. Speed inconsistent. 3 silhouettes. The driver positioned near the exit lane. Her motion didn't falter. Instead of grabbing the cleaner, she casually adjusted her phone on the counter, its camera now aimed at the front door, streaming automatically to a secure cloud. Old habits, she thought. They never die. They just wait. A dark sedan pulled into the lot, parking in the shadows between streetlights. A perfect spot for concealment with clear sightlines to the entrance. Bella's pulse didn't rise. Her breathing didn't change, but every system in her body shifted from idle to active. She was fully awake now, mapping exits, identifying improvised weapons, reviewing civilian engagement rules as naturally as breathing. For 45 long seconds, the men sat in the car, psyching themselves up. Then the doors opened. 3 figures stepped out, pretending to be casual but failing miserably. She observed them with clinical precision. Mid-20s, wrong kind of confidence, cheap tattoos, bad posture. Probability of armed robbery, 94%. Probability they'd leave, 6. Probability this ended clean, 0. The bell chimed again. Bella looked up with that same tired, harmless smile that said she'd seen worse nights. "Help you, gentlemen?" she asked, her tone all late-shift weariness. The one with the neck tattoos stepped forward, while the other two spread out through the aisles, classic control pattern. "Yeah," he said, trying for menace but barely holding it together. His hand moved toward his waistband. Her mind tagged it immediately, 9mm loaded, safety unknown. The second guy's shaky hands revealed an ancient revolver, pawn shop junk. The third produced a knife, holding it backward like he'd learned fighting from action movies. "This is a robbery," the leader said, his voice finding false confidence. "Empty the register." Bella's expression didn't change. Inside, calculations unfolded like a chess match. Primary threat, gun. Secondary, nervous kid likely to fire by accident. Third, blade, close range, less urgent. She raised her hands slowly, calm as still water. "Okay," she said. "No problem." The nervous one shouted, "Faster!" waving the revolver erratically. "Moving as fast as I can," she answered softly, tone level, soothing. "Register's sticky." The leader circled behind the counter, pressing the gun close to her chest. "You think we won't use this?" Her voice stayed low. "I don't think that at all. Just trying to help you get what you want." He grinned, rotten teeth showing. "Smart girl." She reached for the key but pressed something else instead. The panic button. Nothing happened. The system was dead. "What was that?" the knife carrier snapped. "Release switch," she said evenly. "It jams." "She hit the alarm," shouted the nervous one. The leader grabbed her hair, jerking her forward, the gun cold against her temple. "Shut up," he barked. And in that single breath, their mistake became final. The woman they thought was prey turned into something else. Before the thought even formed, Bella's training took over. Her left hand locked his wrist, thumb crushing the nerve point, right hand driving into his elbow, wrenching the gun away as the shot went wild, tearing through a display of beef jerky. In a blur, she pivoted, using his own weight to disarm him. The gun hit the counter safely engaged before his brain caught up. "Don't move," she ordered, voice shifting from cashier to commander. "Don't speak." The second man lifted his revolver, terrified. Bella vaulted the counter, caught his wrist, redirected the muzzle skyward just as it fired into the ceiling. 2 seconds later, the weapon was out of his hand. She set it down beside the first and turned to the man with the knife. He froze, eyes wide. "Leave," she said quietly, "before this gets worse." He hesitated, then bolted. Behind her, the first man lunged. She swept his leg, dropped him flat, and struck his shoulder nerve cluster, leaving his arm useless. "Stay down," she warned. "You're not trained for this. I am." Silence filled the store, thick and electric. The 2 remaining robbers looked at her like she wasn't human. "You can't do this," one gasped. "You hurt us." She almost laughed. "You're going to press charges against the clerk you tried to rob? Be my guest." Calmly, she retrieved her phone, stopped the recording, then dialed 911. "Murphy's Corner Store, Riverside Avenue. Attempted armed robbery. 2 suspects contained. 1 fled. No injuries." The dispatcher's voice trembled with disbelief. "Ma'am, are you safe?" "Completely," she said. "But you'll want to send more than 1 unit." And that's how the quiet clerk at the corner store became headline news. By dawn, Local officers, detectives, and reporters were all asking the same question. Who was this woman who handled danger like it was routine? And as you'll soon see, Captain Joe's Stories has the rest of that answer. Her phone now sat angled just right, the camera fixed on the front door, recording silently and streaming to a cloud backup she'd set up months earlier. Old instincts never really die. In Bella's case, they never even slept. A dark sedan rolled into the lot, headlights off, plate half covered, and instead of stopping at the pumps, it slid into the shadow between two streetlights, hidden but with a perfect view of the entrance. Her pulse stayed steady, breath calm, but every part of her body shifted from idle to mission-ready. Threat evaluation running automatically, exits noted, improvised tools identified, engagement rules updated for civilian ground. The three sat there 45 seconds, too long for customers, long enough for trouble. When they finally stepped out, she already had them classified. First, male, early 20s, tall, broad, walking with the aggressive confidence of a man fueled by chemicals or ego. Second, younger, lean, jittery, moving like someone who'd barely decided he was brave. Third, mid-20s, tattoos on his neck and hands, posture like a wannabe gangster who'd never faced real pushback. They were pretending to be calm and failing miserably. Her inner computer did the math. 94% chance of attempted armed robbery, 6% chance they'd bolt. 0% this would end quietly. The door chimed. Bella looked up, the same weary clerk expression in place, hands visible, posture neutral, every inch of her body radiating harmlessness. "Help you, gentlemen?" she asked, voice flat with fatigue. The tattooed one approached the counter, the other two spreading out across the aisles. Textbook tactic. One controls the clerk, two manage the space. "Yeah," the tattooed one said, trying to sound dangerous but landing on nervous. "You can help us." His hand dropped to his waistband, and she caught the glimpse she needed. 9mm, loaded, safety unclear. The youngest revealed a rusty revolver shaking in his grip. The third flicked open a knife, holding it like someone who'd learned fighting from TV. "This is a robbery," said the leader, emboldened by the sight of steel. "Empty the register." Bella didn't flinch, didn't change tone. Inside, her mind flowed through combat flowcharts. Primary threat, the gun, finger off trigger, limited skill. Secondary, the shaking kid, unpredictable. Tertiary, the knife, less immediate but still dangerous in close quarters. "Okay," she said quietly, moving her hands with the slow grace of a woman who'd survived worse. "No problem here." "Faster!" the nervous one barked, his revolver trembling wildly between her, the ceiling, and the door. "Moving as fast as I can," she said evenly, her tone calm, patient, like talking to a frightened animal that might bite. She said she was moving as fast as she could, voice flat and steady, the same calm you use with a panicked animal or a toddler in the middle of a tantrum. "Register's sticky, just give me a second," she lied, while the tattooed one circled the counter into her space and the pistol settled against her center mass. Her threat matrix updated in an instant. The target had closed into true close-quarters range, and taking control of the pistol was possible inside roughly 1.2 seconds. Pressure rose, but so did her options. She kept her hands slow and visible, body loose and unthreatening. "I'm not taking this lightly," she said softly. "Just trying to give you what you want so nobody gets hurt." Neck tattoo showed a grin that revealed years without a dentist. "Smart girl," he sneered. "We don't want trouble neither. We just want the cash, and were gone. Bella slid her hand past the register key toward the left, where the panic release lived. The insurance company panic button they'd installed and never bothered to test. She hit it. Nothing. No siren, no silent alert. The store's safety system worked about as well as everything else around Murphy's Corner. "What was that?" the knife guy demanded, stepping in, blade hand bunching. "Just the release," she said, temper flickering into her voice for a beat. "This thing jams all the time." "She hit the alarm," the nervous kid blurted, voice cracking as fear took hold. Neck tattoo snapped, grabbed her hair, yanking her forward so his pistol went from chest to temple. Cold metal kissing her skin, his finger sliding toward the trigger. In that instant, they made the mistake that would define the rest of their short careers. They assumed she was an easy mark. Before thought finished, her body answered. 12 years of combat, thousands of CQB reps, muscle memory hammered in far harsher places than a convenience store. All of it ran like code between heartbeats. Her left hand shot up and across, seizing his wrist, fingers locking around tendons while her thumb drove into a pressure point that started to loosen his grip. At the same time, her right hand slammed into his elbow, forcing it to hyperextend and yaw the muzzle away from her head as his finger reflexively clenched on the trigger. The gunshot shattered the stillness, deafening in the confined space as the round tore high and right through a rack of beef jerky and buried itself in the wall. Before the echo faded, Bella had already pivoted, using his own momentum to throw him off balance, her body moving with that smooth, terrifying precision of someone who'd rehearsed this thousands of times. The weapon slipped from his hand with a twist and a pressure lock, and within seconds she had cleared it, engaged the safety, and placed it neatly on the counter behind her. The man stared in disbelief, his mind struggling to catch up with what his body already knew, that the frightened clerk had become something else entirely. "Don't move," she commanded, her voice now stripped of exhaustion, carrying the clipped authority of battlefield leadership. "Don't speak. Think carefully about your next move." The second man's trembling hands lifted his revolver. "Let him go or I'll—" But Bella was already moving. She vaulted the counter effortlessly, her body clearing the surface with military ease, covering the distance in 3 strides. Her hand caught his wrist mid-swing, angling the barrel skyward just as his finger jerked in panic. The revolver went off, blasting a hole in the ceiling tiles, dust raining down like snow. In a fluid blur, she disarmed him. Pressure to the nerve cluster, twist through the thumb joint, weapon freed and secured before he even realized it was gone. She set it aside and turned to face the last man, the one clutching a knife, his confidence draining fast. "You should leave," she said evenly, "before this gets worse." Hesitated, eyes darting from her to the others now sprawled on the floor. Behind her, the first man made a desperate move to rush her from behind. Without turning, Bella tracked the sound of his steps, gauged distance and dropped low, sweeping her leg back to catch his shin at the perfect angle. His knee buckled, and he crashed hard. Before he could recover, her elbow drove into his shoulder, striking the nerve cluster, his arm falling limp. "Stay down," she warned, still watching the knife wielder. "You're not trained for this. I am." The one she'd disarmed sat clutching his arm, staring up at her. "Who the hell are you?" he demanded, voice cracking. Bella didn't answer. She simply met his gaze, steady and unshaken, while the man with the knife slowly lowered it, realizing just how far out of his depth he truly was. He backed away toward the door, shouting that this was insane and that he was out, and Bella didn't argue. Smart move, she said, warning him that once outside he should stay by his car until officers arrived because if he tried to drive off, she already had his plate number, clear footage of his face, and more than enough evidence to make his next decade complicated. Instead of going to the sedan, he bolted down the street, vanishing into the night like a man who'd just learned the world wasn't what he thought. And Bella turned to the two left on the floor, both staring up at her with a mix of terror and disbelief. "Stay exactly where you are," she told them in a steady, professional voice. "In about 4 minutes, Officer Patterson will swing by for his usual coffee. In 5, he'll radio for backup. In roughly 12, you'll be wearing cuffs and explaining yourself to a lawyer." Neck Tattoo, clutching his shoulder, protested that she had hurt them, that she'd assaulted them, and Bella raised an eyebrow at the idea they'd try to press charges against the clerk they'd attempted to rob at gunpoint. Admirable optimism, terrible legal strategy. She moved behind the counter, stopped the recording on her phone, then picked up the store line and dialed 911. "This is Bella Ward at Murphy's Corner on Riverside Avenue," she reported. "Attempted armed robbery, 3 suspects, 2 in custody, 1 fled, no medical injuries, weapons secured." The dispatcher's tone tightened with concern. Was she safe? Did she need assistance? And Bella answered calmly that she was safe, but that multiple units were probably warranted. While she waited for the police, she made a fresh pot of coffee because Officer Patterson would expect it. The next several hours blurred into a grind of reports, evidence collection, witness statements, and the awkward questions about how a convenience store clerk could disarm 3 armed men without a scratch. Detective Sarah Morrison arrived about 90 minutes after the initial call. Sharp-eyed, mid-40s, practiced at spotting when someone was shaping their words. And after taking a seat, she asked Bella to walk through everything from the top. Bella did, giving a crisp, factual account that included every necessary detail while omitting anything that might open doors she didn't want opened. Morrison listened, made notes, and when Bella finished, she looked up with an expression that said she'd heard far more than the plain events. "You disarmed 3 men," Morrison said slowly. 2 had firearms. "You did this without injury, without obvious strain, using techniques that would challenge our tactical teams under stress." "I got lucky," Bella said, deflecting. "They were amateurs. Terrible weapon discipline. No training," Bella added flatly. But Detective Morrison wasn't convinced. She scrolled through her tablet. "Interesting, because all 3 of them, once they realized cooperation meant lighter sentences, told us you moved like someone out of a movie. One of them even said you looked like a soldier. Any comment on that?" Bella met her stare, face calm, voice steady. "I took a self-defense class after a bad experience in college. Guess it stuck with me." Morrison tilted her head, weighing how far to push. "Ms. Ward, let me be direct. People don't neutralize 3 armed suspects using movements that read like trained combat without more than a few self-defense sessions. The way you handled those weapons, your precision, your lack of panic, it's beyond basic." Bella stayed silent, the kind of silence drilled into her long ago when debriefs came from friendly interrogators. Morrison sighed. "Look, I'm not trying to cause trouble. What you did was textbook self-defense. You probably saved your life and stopped a violent crime. But I've got to ask why someone with those reflexes is pulling a graveyard shift at a convenience store. Were you military?" The question hung there. Bella ran through the variables. The truth invited attention. A lie would eventually fail. She went with the middle path. "Yes," she said finally. "Navy, served my time, honorable discharge, came back home." Morrison didn't blink. What did you do in the Navy? Not comfortable discussing specifics. Miss Ward, I've interviewed plenty of veterans. Most share at least a general idea of their work. The ones who don't, well, there's always a reason. Bella said nothing. Special operations? Morrison pressed quietly. Detective, my record isn't relevant. 3 men tried to rob me. I acted within the law. They're in custody. End of story. Morrison studied her for a long moment before nodding. Fair enough. But my captain's going to follow up. You used advanced training to prevent a felony. That makes you interesting to people paid to notice things. I just want to finish my shift and go home. Understood, Morrison said, softening. Veteran to civilian, keep your head down. I know you want a quiet life. Many of us do, but tonight you stepped into the light. And tomorrow, every outlet in the state's going to run your story. Clerk disarms armed robbers. It's the kind of feel-good headline that spreads fast. The familiar heaviness settled in Bella's chest. She'd spent 8 months avoiding this exact scenario. Any way to keep it quiet? Not a chance. It's public record. Your boss will love the press. The PR office will make their statement, Morrison warned. And by next week, the media will be camped outside the store chasing the story of the fearless clerk who fought back. That's exactly what I was trying to avoid, Bella muttered. Morrison gathered her notes and stood. For what it's worth, she said, what you did tonight was extraordinary. You stayed calm, used only the force needed, and stopped 3 young men from digging themselves deeper. Whatever you did in the Navy, they trained you well. When she left, the store felt even quieter. Dawn's pale light crept through the windows as the bread truck came and went. Officer Patterson got his coffee and filed his report, and the scene was logged, bagged, and boxed for evidence. Bella sat beneath the buzz of the fluorescence, realizing her quiet, carefully built life had just shifted off its axis. Her phone buzzed, a text from a number she hadn't seen in 3 years, one she'd hoped was gone for good. Saw the police report. Impressive work. Be careful about exposure. Call me. We need to talk. R. She stared at it for a long time. Commander Rachel Hayes, her last CO, the one who'd signed her discharge papers, her last real link to the life she'd buried. Bella deleted the message. At 6:30, the manager burst in, giddy about the publicity. By 7, news crews filled the lot. By 8, she slipped out the back door, exhausted, walking home to an apartment that suddenly felt like a holding cell. 3 days later, Morrison's prediction came true. Local news, then regional outlets, then viral hero accounts picked up the security footage. Grainy, but clear enough to capture her calm face with a gun to her head. Navy-trained clerk disarms armed robbers. The headlines blared. The store owner, Gregory Murphy, offered her a raise, a management job, and TV spots for brand visibility. She refused them all. Her street turned into a circus of cameras and microphones. Neighbors she'd barely nodded to now wanted selfies. Her phone, which she'd kept unlisted, somehow found its way into the hands of reporters, veteran groups, and reality show producers. She stopped picking up entirely. By day 4, she was considering leaving the city, maybe even changing her name, when someone knocked in a rhythm that made her freeze. 3 quick, 1 pause, 2 quick. She looked through the peephole. Civilian clothes, military posture, Commander Hayes. Bella opened the door. You're hard to reach, Hayes said dryly. Been busy avoiding the world. Noticed. Come in, Bella said, stepping aside. Hayes scanned the window, noting the cameras outside. You really did it this time, Ward. Didn't have a choice, they were going to shoot. I'm not judging, Hayes replied. You handled it perfectly from a tactical view. But from an OPSEC perspective, you just lit a signal flare. And you're not putting it out anytime soon. Bella moved to the kitchen, poured coffee she didn't need. I wanted peace, that's why I left. You earned that peace, Hayes said softly. But quiet doesn't last long when the world suddenly remembers who you used to be. Hayes leaned back slightly, fingers clasped around the steaming mug. Here's the thing, she said quietly. You're officially interesting now. And when someone like you becomes interesting, certain people start sniffing around. Bella frowned. What kind of people? Hayes met her eyes. The kind who remember the Navy's youngest SEAL operator. The kind who know your exit wasn't fully explained. The kind who believe someone with your capabilities should still be doing something for her country. Bella placed a cup in front of her and sat opposite. I'm not going back. I'm not here to recruit you, Hayes replied. I'm here to warn you. Her tone hardened. Your footage from the store, people analyzed it. Serious people. They counted 17 techniques in that short sequence. 12 of them are classified and taught in exactly 3 places in the U.S. One of those is where we trained you. Bella's jaw tightened. So the right observers are piecing together a profile. They know you weren't just another sailor. They see the CQC precision, the disarmament flow, the situational awareness. That kind of skill belongs to one very specific circle. Bella sipped her coffee, thinking, what are you really saying, Commander? I'm saying you need to prepare for the wrong kind of spotlight, Hayes said. Reporters, recruiters, and maybe a few ghosts from your past. Some will want your story. Some will want you back. And some will want answers about why you left. Bella's voice dropped. The record says I was medically discharged with honors. The record says a lot, Hayes countered. But there are people who know your last mission went sideways in ways that never made it into writing. People who might see this publicity as a chance to reopen old questions. Bella set her cup down with quiet precision. What do you want me to do? Be smart, Hayes said simply. Stay invisible. No interviews, no statements, no comment threads. And if anyone starts digging deeper than surface level, call me. Immediately. That's it? Bella asked quietly. You came all this way just to tell me to be careful? Hayes met her gaze, steady and unwavering. I came because you were one of the finest operators I ever had the honor to command. I came because I owed you a warning about what's coming. And, she added, her expression softening, because I needed to see for myself that you're still standing. Bella gave a half-smile. I'm managing. No, Hayes said gently. You're surviving. There's a difference. She reached into her jacket, slid a small card across the table. This is my personal number. Not the one that goes through the chain of command. If you need anything, intel, backup, an exit from whatever mess finds you, call me. Day or night. Bella turned the card over in her fingers, studying the simple print before nodding. Thank you, Commander. Hayes gave her a rare smile. You're one hell of a SEAL, Ward, but you're also allowed to be human. Don't let anyone, including yourself, convince you otherwise. When Hayes was gone, the apartment felt smaller, the air heavier. Bella sat there, the card resting in her palm like a relic from a life she'd buried. Outside, muffled voices of reporters drifted up through the window, talking about the mystery woman who'd stopped an armed robbery. She thought of those 3 foolish men who'd chosen the wrong store, of the 12 years of conditioning that had turned reflex into instinct, of her father, a SEAL before her, who'd once told her that true strength wasn't in pulling the trigger, but in knowing when not to. And she thought about that single moment, the pressure of cold steel against her temple, the sharp clarity of perfect control. Some skills, once learned, never fade. Some identities can be masked, but never erased. Bella Ward had tried to disappear for 8 months, but she was learning that invisibility is just another kind of mission, and missions always change. The cameras would eventually move on, headlines would fade, and maybe someday, her nights would be quiet again. But the woman behind the counter at Murphy's Corner would never be the same. Because 3 men had made the fatal mistake of threatening someone forged to survive far worse. And sometimes, survival means letting the world see exactly who you are, whether you plan to or not. Thanks for watching. Every woman has a story worth telling. Join us next time on Captain Joe's Stories.